Welcome, everybody, to Integrate Yourself. I'm your host, Allison Pillow, and you can find me at finallythrivingbook.com and pureenergypdx.com. Today, I'm here with a very special friend. Nico is here, and we're going to talk about some really amazing things. I had the pleasure and the honor of having Nico and Anna, who is his partner, over. They stayed with us for about a week or more, and we got to spend so much great time. This is the first time I met you guys, and I felt like I had known you forever. And so it was just such a delight to have you guys at our house and to go hiking with you and share meals and all that. So I'm so excited to have you on the show because we had some really great conversations during that small span of time. And I wanted to get you on the podcast so that we could expand on some of those conversations and share it with my audience as well. So welcome, Nico, to the show. I'm so excited that you're here. And please start by just sharing with everybody more about you and how you came to be. You can share like where you're at. And you have such a great story about how you came to be living in Mexico. And now you guys are traveling across the United States. And so, please start there.
Okay. Well, thanks for having me. I'm sure we'll touch on the story of when you first met me inside your house, because I was already in there. But
yeah, that's right.
And what we bonded over.
Yes.
But as far as me, I'm a guy traveling, exploring, adventuring, experiencing life. I've had a lot of stories, just like everyone else. I grew up in Chicago. Spent the majority of my life there until actually COVID started. That was the first time I started traveling. I had left Chicago. I had the opportunity to leave the company I was working for. I had also owned and operated a CrossFit gym with a few business partners for about 5 years simultaneously. So I was able to move on from that. And there's a lot of stories within all of that, but it just led me on this journey. I was unhappy at the cheese company, although it was very great and I loved the people. And same with the gym. The gym was what I loved, and it was my heart, my fire. And it was just having this moment one time of like, oh shit, like I'm not in love with this anymore. And instead of, trying to get everyone to come my way, realizing they're happy where they're at. So me going forward on my journey. And a practice of trusting and faith. And I went to Mexico a year and a half ago, about now, with a buddy. And I had just left another job I was working for, more of a dream job, traveling and working remotely with friends. And it was just time to take a break. That was what I was getting from my body. I couldn't get away from the thoughts, this idea. And the clear answer for me was to rest. So I went to Mexico. I met my partner there at the time, or now she's my partner, but we met down there. And we shared a lot of the same vision. I have a dream and a vision of my life, and I'm open to shifting that and changing that as life goes on. But I have a direction I'm moving towards. And she shared that alignment, shared the vision. So we are cultivating a dream and a life together, and as well as our own individuations, but what we are sharing together. So we spent about 6 months down there, give or take, usually a little less. And for me, growing up in Chicago and having the seasons, it's nicer. The weather's the same every day, at least when in the dry season, when it's not like right now, it's raining from like May till September, it rains. The rest of the time, it does not rain. It's the same every day. Same highs, same lows, barely clouds, and it's great. But after a while, my body enjoys the change, enjoys the mountains that are close and the cool air. So we come back to the States in between, and the intention is to travel and to share and to give workshops and experiences with Tantra, with relationship, and some of our own individual offerings to others. And so far it's turned out, there's been a little of that, but so far it's just been spending a lot of times growing new relationships, connections like the one we had, where we're sitting there, it's raining in Portland. You're like, what do you guys want to do today? And I'm like, sit here and have tobacco bags and explore our minds, explore all these
Exactly.
ideas, and hours go by. So yeah, that's a bit of who I am and where I'm at right now. And yeah, we were just with you about a week and a half ago. Just left Oregon. Oregon was very good to us, and now we're going to be spending some time in California. So
Nice. Yeah. Yeah. And that's what I experienced too. We were just learning how to be, or not even learning, just being. And you talk about that a lot, actually, in some of your social media, and I think with your work, and with your men's work as well. And I'll also add that the whole reason you and I got connected was my husband went to a men's retreat with Mike Salimi, um, and you were there also as a facilitator, and that's how he got connected with you, I think last year sometime. And then there was another retreat recently in Mount Shasta, and so after that retreat, I believe you guys came up to where we live in Oregon, and that's how you and I met, because Liam was like, come on up and stay. And so yeah, and what I loved about the visit was that we did just sit there and there was no expectations. We sat there and did bags together and talked about deep stuff, and it was like time just wasn't even a thing, It just, I kind of lost track of time that week, really. And so it felt like just an amazing time, an amazing experience, because it just from, because we get into these schedules where we're going all the time, and we're doing a lot. And then we identify ourselves with the things that we're doing. But like you say, we forget how to be. And so it's a great reminder that really there's nothing you have to do. You can just be yourself and experience that, right?
right, and from there, it's rather than say it's you know the doing is coming. In my perspective, my belief is the doing is coming from the being. Because I am that, my body, my thoughts, my actions are reflective. So the things I do in life are reflective of who I am being, rather than trying to do stuff to become something. Right.
Yeah.
Like I have a friend that has this very successful company, millions and millions of dollars of revenue. And we used to laugh when he wanted to have millions of dollars when we were young. We didn't come from that place. We didn't come from money. And it was to see that, like, he embodied a millionaire. He acted it, he felt it. All of us would be like, well, what are you doing? Like, how are you doing that? That doesn't, no, but he did. And then after, the money arrived, you
Yeah.
know? And so just for me, that's part of the practice in life. And it's even, we watched the Yogananda documentary, right?
Yeah.
Because he's influenced me a lot in subtle ways where I didn't even realize I was resistant to him, resistant to yoga, just having all these synchronicities around it. Still at the time believing yoga was what we think in America yoga is. Knowing Paul Chek's one of my like great teachers, and knowing we share that in common. And when I went to my first workshop with Paul, which I think I have my painting around here, going in his office after and then seeing the pictures of Yogananda and his guru, and remembering Paul was raised in the Self-Realization Fellowship for a few years because his mother was a part of it. And just, I was like, oh shit. Okay. Just signs upon signs. But he talks about it too. I read a quote just the other day, and it's somewhere along the lines of, if you can hold the thought, if you can focus so intently on something like an identity, an I am statement, a way of being, then the body and the actions will abide by that. They'll obey that. They'll follow that, rather than in reverse.
Yes.
You
Yeah.
know, so, and truly believing that how wild and interesting you want to explore all the ideas with your mind is like, well, is this a simulation? I mean, that kind of in a way aligns with the idea that it's just the manifestation of Shiva's third eye. It's
Yeah.
just a big hologram projection, and everything outside is just reflecting the inside. And Taoist is talking, the Taoist system's talking about that. The Tantric system's talking about that. You can even say the Babylonian Christian system's talking about that. That the astrology is talking about that. The everything is within, and the answer of going inside, understanding that, this belief that everything in my reality, whether when I interact with other people and stuff, we're sharing karma, we're sharing connections or contracts or lessons from each other, but that I'm the creator of everything in my reality, which comes with full responsibility of everything, not whether I like it or not whether I'm happy or sad, but whether I'm content with what is, if I accept with what is. And from there, I can start to realize, I can begin to see the beauty, the abundance, the prosperity, the love, everything that's there all the time, and to appreciate it, and really to appreciate it, to be, we could say gratitude, but appreciation being the now, right now. What's the act? The act is gratitude's the state. The act is appreciation. What am I doing? Yes. I'm appreciating. Right.
Yeah, that's an act of doing, right? Yeah.
I'm being grateful. And how do you be grateful? Well, one of the actions of being grateful is appreciation.
Absolutely. And that's what I think people miss a lot of times, is they don't integrate that aspect of it, the whole being, the embodying aspect of appreciation, from what I've seen. Yeah.
It's a practice, right? I believe everything's a practice rather than it's work. And that's just for me, what subconsciously work means to me. I understand doing the work is a very common thing. It's a phrase, right? And it's well intended, I believe. But it gets into how deeply you believe the system and the reality, and how powerful words are. And sorry, I lost my train. What were we just saying?
Okay. No, go ahead. Well, yeah, I mean, I think that, yeah, we know these concepts, we've heard them before. And it's really funny because after I watched the Yogananda documentary with you, Awake, and I had that book for years and I'd forgotten about it. And then again, like you're saying, like I remember hearing Paul grew up in that environment too. And there's all these synchronicities around it. And I talked to some people I was like, oh, surely this has been out forever. Surely people know about Yogananda, especially people in the yoga community. And I was bringing it up and they were like, no, I've never heard of it. And I'm like, he brought yoga to the United States. How do you not hear about it? But it was a different kind of yoga. Like you said, that people aren't used to that here. The way we think of yoga is more like in the fitness industry or a way of exercising our body. But what he brought to the table was more like you're talking about, in how to focus your mind into really getting rid of the chatter, the mind chatter, and all the distractions, and focusing really on what you really want to create. And that takes courage, and it, like you said, takes responsibility to follow through on. And I find it even harder now because I think he was doing all of this in the 20s and 30s. And of course we didn't have as many distractions back then, but now even more so than ever. So it's even more of an exercise for the mind to learn how to do this. And like I love that we're talking about the embodiment aspect of it, because when I wrote the book Finally Thriving, that's what I wanted to bring into the wellness, the wellness industry, or just because it's all about really a lot of doing, and taking the action to become this. But a lot is missed because they're not really talking about embodying, like the aspect of embodying that energy. And I love the example that you used of your friend who wanted to be a millionaire and he started acting like a millionaire. And so they kind of go hand in hand. But I think that more people put more weight on the doing aspect and kind of, willing themselves to get through, instead of really providing the space and the time to reflect on what's happening and how they want to feel and how they want their life to look, and all of that.
And having your life looks the way you think and feel.
Yeah.
So we should maybe practice thinking and feeling in a manner that's aligned with our dream, with our imagination, with our, that's a big piece of the puzzle just on its own, is that almost everyone's imagination, unless they're practicing it, is just completely diminished. It's been shut off, right? They're taking in this input. They don't have the ability to play with action figures and make up a story like a 5-year-old does, and just make up crazy things and give it new rules. And it's like, their ability to perceive what's possible for their life, like bringing in this Yogananda idea. Before, I would have been completely rejected it, turned off to it. His yoga, the real yoga is about body, mind, and spirit, right? As we're talking about we're just talking a lot about the physical reality. And it's not necessarily for me about all, being is an aspect. It's an aspect that needs to be practiced as well as the doing. But I believe one is a greater domino for the other, and that they're balanced. There's an equal amount of balance of being and doing, right? We can't just be. I mean, maybe it is possible. Maybe someone can attain that level of power where by being it, simply materializes around them. When I read Yogananda, there's talks of miracles in there, right? Well, we would refer to as miracles, things like Jesus would do. If I would have read that 2 years ago, I would have been like, bull fucking shit. And now I'm like, okay, maybe, maybe. Right. And to me, part of the practice, part of the game is the ability to hold multiple perspectives, multiple ideas without making a judgment upon them, and over time, as I'm experiencing them and taking in more data, I can lean towards one or another, but I don't have to be completely firmly fixed, and there are lines in the sand I'll draw, but at the same time, it's a practice of being flexible. And I trained people for 10 years, and the way I taught a squat in year 1 versus what I taught in year 10, was I wrong or stupid in year 1, or do I just know more now? Right. And so it's like that's an ability, that's a practice, a frame of language, a way of being that allows you to open to new ideas, to try new things, to have new experiences, and to continue to refine and define what your reality is. Because what if, I said this the other day talking about like Tartaria and flat earth. Right. It's some crazy stuff. 2 years ago, laughed at it. A year ago, I'm like, still. 6 months ago, okay, let's see what it is. Interesting. Now, does it matter necessarily for me if the earth's flat or round? I mean, does it actually affect my decisions each day in my life? Oh, not really. Like, what do I make in my life based on that? The laws of driving my car are going to stay the same whether the earth's round or flat. Like, that's just my theory on it. But what it does enable is the potential that, if this has been misconstrued, if this has been misled, and this has been misguided, and we see this theme over and over and over again, right? Mm-hmm. In the news, in the media, in the narratives, in the culture. Well, if that's been misguided, then maybe, like, that's the biggest thing. That's such a fundamental thing we're taught, and for years couldn't even be argued, couldn't even be discussed, because you're ostracized, right? And so it's like, well, what if then what a lot of these masters are teaching, these ancient masters, these stories are accurate? What if they did attain these abilities, right? Through one of your friends, a teacher of mine, someone I worked with, Roseanne Grace, she recommended the books. Oh, it's right here. The Life and Teaching of the Masters of the Far East. I think it's 5 or 6 volumes. It was published in like 1920. And these guys go on an expedition in the Far East in 1894 to study these great gurus, these masters in the Himalayas. Half of them never came back because they vowed to stay their entire life till they could perform the same acts. Wow. They went to scientifically disprove this in the early 1900s, right? They didn't. They became believers. So what does that say? Like, what is that kind of thing? What does that open up as possibilities? Right. And there's so much, it can get uncomfortable, right? We've talked about doing the work. Well, I view it as practice, that, it's never finished, right? If you're polished yourself, then you're just going to practice and help with the collective and others, right? It's not done in this life. There's not an endedness, right? And that's what work means to me. Work subconsciously is about getting off work, working till I can retire one day. It's typically something I'm not doing, because when I owned the gym and I ran the gym, I didn't tell people I'm working. I'm coaching, or I'm cleaning the floors, or I'm going to do some numbers, or do something, organize the gym. But I didn't say I'm like, I got to work, right? Like when I worked when I was 17, and I worked at my uncle's like dump truck, where he, excavated dirt, and dump truck warehouse for where they stored the trucks, and helped the mechanic, like that was going to work. Right. So when it comes to this personal development, to me, it should be practiced like a master, a skill practiced over lifetime or many lifetimes. And through Roseanne, she referenced that to me, and I bought them in 6 months, didn't touch them. And then, put one in the car as we left Mexico, and random podcast we're listening to references it again. It's like, okay, that's the sign. It's time to, and same, it's miracle upon miracle upon what we're just, between society and all of this stuff, we're compounded with all of culture's beliefs, right? And these subtle narratives, the most subtle narratives of victim, like, there's victim narrative in the most subtle ways in so many things, right? There's a lack of worthiness or our value being tied to our production, to what we do, to what we do, right? You're not worthy of millions of dollars here and now because you're God's child. You're not worthy of this because, well, maybe you are, maybe, and when a new belief is instilled, when a new way of being, there's feedback from the external, and it's going to challenge you. It's going to put that in your face and test you. You really believe this? You trust yourself. Here's something to practice trusting yourself, and giving you that choice, and that's, to me, when we've kind of graduated from a lesson, we started to integrate these things. They come back in different layers and subtle ways. But, for me, when I left the cheese company because COVID stopped, but I wanted to leave for years, but I didn't have the guts. I didn't have the courage. I didn't know what I was going to do, how I would survive, etc. All those fears. And COVID gave me the exit. Just like, can't get cheese from Italy right now. Like, COVID hit Italy first. So I went, so I'm kind of like, the job left me, right? It freed me, but I didn't choose myself. I didn't choose what my heart wanted. I didn't make that stand for myself. So 6 months later, 9 months later, I find myself working with my friends, my brothers, the people I love, like my crew, my soul family. And I'm getting paid well for me. I'm happy with all of it. And I'm just a wreck, like, through it. And just having this clear call, like, this isn't for me. This isn't, I can do this, and I can do a lot of things. I can do whatever I put my mind to, right? I have that belief. I can achieve what I put my will and my mind towards. And so it just was there very clearly. And I decided to leave, and I had to tell him. It was at one of our men's retreats, one of the men's retreats I co-facilitated. And like, we said, this one, we used some medicines, and we sat with Combo. Mike Salemi had served Combo, and like, it just opened all the things I was trying to bury, all the stories I was trying to tell me of what I was clear in my heart. I believe when people really get into their heart, they feel their heart, they hear their heart. That's a practice, right? They can have experiences that pull them in, and it's so clear. And then life kind of disrupts that, throws in the contrast, throws in all the other noise, and tests you. How much do you want to listen to your heart? But I believe once you hear your heart, it gets louder and ignoring it becomes more painful.
Yes, I
And
agree.
and so I saw it as a lesson that it was time, like, this still wasn't fully aligned with who I am, what I wanted. I wanted to rest. I wanted, to explore something different in life. And I was there for money. I realized at one point I wasn't aligned with the mission anymore. I wanted to do a different mission. I wanted more about spiritual work, emotional work, energetic work. This was still more focusing on people in the physical, right? People that are very focused in the physical. So, and it was just like my gym, like trying like, oh, this is cool over here. Like everyone should come try this, you know? No, like they're happy where they're at. I was just happy there months ago doing WODs with them. Like that's me. It's time to go. Same with this company. It's time, rather than I think we can make a bigger impact in the world. I'd like to do this and trying to convince them and shift them my way. It's like, no, I'm going to go my way. And for me, that was a choice of choosing myself, right? That was the same lesson served to me again because I didn't complete it with the cheese company. So it gave me basically the same situation. Like, here's a super comfortable situation. It's, minimal hours, great pay, people you love. It was the same situation symbolically to me. And so it said, here you go again. Are you going to do it? Are you going to pick yourself this time? Right.
Yeah.
And it's like, to me, that's how the lessons will often be served. Like if we don't choose, it'll come back in another way. Right. If we allow it to choose for us, like that's not the sovereignty. That's not the power or the empowerment, the choice, the free will,
Absolutely.
not making a choice is making a choice.
That's true. That's very true. Well, I love what you're saying, and it really resonates with me as well. And I felt the same when COVID hit too. And um, what came to mind as you were saying that was, some people may listen to that and they're like, "That's amazing," but how do you do that? How do you make that choice to choose you? In that moment? And it sounded like you got a really very direct message that hit you pretty hard, and then you knew there was no other way to go. But
Right.
what would most, like, because I think a lot of people are comfortable, they're comfortable with the money, and there's all these fears about leaving. Like, even if, like you're saying, you kind of made a lateral move to a different job and it seemed better, but at the same time it was just the same thing in a different environment with different people. And then, how do you, I guess, what advice would you give to people about how to discern between that? Because that is a huge discernment to make in your life, because we can be, I guess it comes down to maybe your heart is what I'm thinking. Yeah.
Well, I imagine deep in there for most of us, if they're like myself, there's a belief there that like your passion, your highest excitement, your joy, your passion, it can't support you. Right. So untangling ideas like that. I mean, in all honesty, it's been very bumpy. It's been plenty of emotions, plenty of ups and downs. But it's like an amazing roller coaster, and the fruits of it have been so amazing. I wouldn't trade it for anything. It's like, out of all, I'm not a parent yet. I'd like to be, and you are. And it's like, out of all the ups and downs of being a parent, would you not do it because of all the downs? And how many
Right.
people are restricting themselves or staying in their same place, which is okay. Because for me, most of the things that moved me, like what happened there was, it hurt more to stay than to go into the unknown. Like the pain was too much to stay put, right? Dr. Payne was there. He was teaching me, he was giving me feedback, telling me it's time to go, right? Because at first, when we get to a spot we're comfortable, we get to a new level or whatever you call it, which I don't know if I would look at it as levels. We're just on our own paths. We're equals, right? Levels kind of implies unequals in
Yes.
ways, but without going into all those subtleties, because this language and these subtleties are deeply affecting us. And so, someone looking to move forward or are you acting from pain or are you acting from love? You know, because if you can act from love, then, and also still have the belief, hold the belief. What is faith? To me, faith requires a bit of uncertainty. With certainty, you know, with 100%, like, it's not completely trusting. It's not faith, right? There needs to be a little bit there, at least for me.
Yeah.
And do you have faith that you are eternally guided, supported, loved by this great one, by it, by all, by Shiva, by whatever you call it? If you don't have any belief in any of that, well, then you have a lot of other experiences, I imagine, to happen first before you're ready to take action from a place like this, right?
Right.
But as this, like, for me, no one brought spirituality to me. No one brought God to me. This came from within. It's my own. And everyone, they say a guru doesn't lead them to the guru. They lead them to themselves, right? We got to go chant with Krishna Das.
Yes.
That's what he talked about. He's talked about how the guru leads you to you, right? In the Yogananda documentary, we were talking about, or we were listening, where the one guy is basically like, say he was like crying, like, because the things that he was saying to him were so harsh, so clear of what he was seeing about him. And, you know, he's like, it was killing him. He was about to cry. And Yogananda said to him, like, basically somewhere along the lines of, like, I've given you my unconditional love. Like, don't pass it up, or don't miss it, you know?
Right.
And, but yeah, for people, it's their own path. It's their own journey. Everyone's got their way. And, you know, I think doing it with others, like finding someone else that you resonate with, a teacher, a guide, someone that can, a mentor, someone that can just support you along the bumps, you know. But a lot of people have a lone wolf story, right?
Yeah.
And not being supported, and not, because that would align, like, oh yeah, if you don't believe you're supported by the universe, by God, by Shiva, then, like, why would you think you're supported by little old man over here?
Right.
You know, like, yeah. So there's just layers to it. I would call it layers, like a cake. Yeah.
Yeah.
Something along those lines.
I think that is the key, is to begin to get more comfortable with the unknown, learn how to both trust yourself and feel supported, and so that you can receive and be open. You know, it is a societal norm that giving is what we do, and we do. Yet there's not much taught about the receiving aspect of life, and how to stay open, and how that you can give so much more when you receive more, right? And so I really, really love that. That's a great kind of view
And these
of,
are,
yeah.
to me, the giving, the practicing, or the giving, the and receiving, again, practice. You know,
Yeah.
people like you allowing me, taking me in, sharing your meals with us, sharing your family with us. Like, you know, at some level, I was joking, like, usually everyone's got a number of days at that, like, third day or their fourth day, they feel guilty, or like they've overstayed their welcome, of like, what level, like, can I receive before it gets uncomfortable? Is there a part of me that when someone at dinner pulls out their credit card and says, I got this, everyone, you know, you can say thank you, instead of like pull out yours and go, are you sure? Even though the part of you's happy, like, yeah, thank you. Right. And that's a practice. And the same with, you know, we talk about the language a lot. You know, a lot of people in the language world, and the language is super powerful, but it also must be coherent with the emotions, right?
Yeah.
So, like, if I'm saying one thing and feeling another, you know, you could, in a way, I believe, continue saying it. But if you actually understand how to manipulate your body, because it's emitting frequency, it is speaking. Most of our communication isn't through words. It's actually through posture, through body language. It's really actually through frequency, through an energy, right? It's an energy about someone. When I come over and hang out for a week, and you're like, I lost time. I like, you know, when I was at Salemi's for a week, I'm leaving. I'm going to leave. And he goes, it was like a vacation. Like, he, you know, that's just an energy I'm carrying, I'm emitting. And so then we use words and we do things to match that. But if I can learn that my body is, and now I can practice saying the words, instilling the new beliefs, I am eternally guided, loved, supported. I am eternally guided, loved, and supported. And I can be with the observance in my body. I can sit versus, and I can be aware of when I say one that I don't believe, you'll get a ping. Like you will get a something, right? Or you'll try and widget, right? And so even through Tantra, right? Tantra is just a spiritual path at the end of the day, very simply put. It's kind of like the Taoist system, but slight differences, but so much the same. It's just a spiritual path, and you can use sexuality and sex, but so many people have it mixed up with that when that's just a simple aspect of life. Therefore, it's a simple aspect of the spiritual path, and it can be harnessed and used. Yeah, I forgot what I was going there.
Well, yeah, I love that, how you're describing how you can communicate with your body, and how we do have a frequency that we know is there, because when someone walks in the room, you can feel something, good or bad or otherwise. And you also probably feel your own energy change, depending on your environment, or if you're coming in and uplifting a room and those kinds of things. Those are things we do notice, but we rarely acknowledge or talk about. And so there is definitely so much to that. But I find that we're starting to learn more about how that works, but I think people, for the most part, don't give it too much weight because we consider it something like woo woo. But the body is emitting a frequency, which is, on some level, a sound, right? It's a sound frequency that is communicating with other bodies, and communicating and attracting certain things in your life. So it is important to pay attention to that.
Right. It's speaking to us all the time. And to me, we both came from the physical world, like in terms of fitness and self-development from the physical realm. And I think that's where it starts for most people. Most people don't show up and say, hey, I want to lose 10 pounds. And then you take 10 pounds off them and they shake your hand and say, thank you, goodbye. Right. Like it
Right.
starts peeling different layers, because then they start getting to, well, what would be different in their life if they lost 10 pounds? And then why do they want that? And then what would be different if they got that? And it goes, oh, maybe there's emotional things here. Oh, there's energy stuff. Like, what the hell is that? And, and it just kind of ascends, and it connects, and they're like steps, I don't meet too many people that started with the emotional. I meet most people that started in the physical realm. And once they've changed their physical body, they kind of, there's an empowerment of, oh my goodness, I can actually make shifts here. I can do this.
Right.
Right. And, but then we realize that there's more. No one wants to lose 10 pounds because they want to lose 10 pounds. They want to lose 10 pounds to be happier or healthier, or so the other person likes them more. They can have better sex or whatever it might be, getting to those deeper layers and those roots.
Yeah, absolutely. And that translates into everything we come across too, even like our food, our water, how you taking that into your body. Are you also connecting with the energy of that? Like, without sounding too hippie, there is something to there is something to blessing your food, blessing your water, which is what we did a lot of while you were there as well. And we continue to do. And I've really made that a practice, even though that sounds like um, it might not be, but I really make it a practice now to really be present with even my meal now, because uh, it's so important for me to just do that more consciously. And there's little things you can just integrate just like that. That can be part of your practice as well, of learning how to be, learning how to appreciate what's in front of you, and those kinds of things.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
For me, the appreciation in those practices are, I meet a lot of people that say they believe the, they say they believe the spiritual stuff, like we're all connected, we're all one, like we're all just aspects of the same thing, just looking at each other and learning about experiencing itself from different perspectives, meaning your food is you eating you, right?
Yeah.
Just from
Yeah.
a different perspective. So to connect to it, to appreciate it. Because, so in Tantra, we have a practice called transfiguration. It's one of the 3 pillars of Tantra. And transfiguration, we'll often do it first with a partner, with another human. And it's eye gazing deep into them and transfiguring them to see the God or the goddess within them, to see divinity beyond the being, beyond the physical person there and all the stories, but just to see deeply in there. And that's a practice. But then you can start to do that with everything. Sadhguru was on Joe Rogan talking about it. It seemed to me that he kind of like Joe gets it, but also doesn't fully buy it, where he's like, if you understood that you were connected to everything, everything was you, like you won't cut your own finger off, right? Like, it's just like, if someone does, they have a psychological thing going on, but most people, like, they know better and they'll never cut their finger off on purpose. So there would be no like purpose for if everyone had attained this level of understanding and appreciation that they were everything is part of them, and the ego is to be balanced and harmonized and related to in a healthy way, to be made your ally for your spiritual pursuit. Your ego is not meant to be killed. Your ego is your point of reference. It's the way you have a relationship to everything in the world, whether it be a book or another human or your own feelings. You have to have the I to have a relationship. We have to have that separation. So again, that goes back to this idea of holding two concepts at the same time in your consciousness of we're all one and connected, and I'm individuated and experiencing from my perspective, and keeping a harmony, a balance in between those, right? And so simple things like that can be practices. But if you look at Rumi was transfiguring the entire world all the time. He was seeing the beauty, the love, the divinity of everything. He see God as the doorknob, right? Because that's the like really advanced level of the practice. First, it's so much easier to do it with a human, but then when you start to do it with a rock, you start to do it with your glasses, like inanimate, it becomes, and that's where then society and culture, in certain places, you're a madman, you're crazy, you're cuckoo, but in other places, you're not. So it's just like, are you going to allow, because as you take on these beliefs, the spiritual journey, the spirit is the spirit within, it's inspiration in spirit rising within, right? Are you going to let others outside of you convince you what to do, what to believe, right? You start having these deep beliefs inside yourself, these almost knowings, these, you can either start to surround yourself and find more people that are also walking those lines and exploring these ideas and exploring these experiences, or you can listen to all the noise that's basically just like a designed fence to keep you in, right? It's like this Life and Teachings of the Masters of the Far East book. It would technically just be like a fantasy or a fiction, but it's written as a documented book. Like, so but if this is taken into today's age, and like we share this with all the kids in school and we make them believe, we share this idea that this stuff's possible, like the society is in such a different place with that, right? Yeah. And so that's a test. That's a test of the self, of how much you believe in you, how much do you believe in the Great One, how much do you trust this? Do you trust yourself and your guidance system? Versus that those narratives will come out. And why? Because why do I need the input from others? There's some story there there's some story there why I won't trust myself completely. Yeah. I can ask for help. I receive support from others. And ultimately, when I'm not sure, I ask around, I ask questions, and I seek more data. But I make my decision and I trust me. And that's a deep practice. Like, I was watching something about fractals. And fractals are wildly interesting. I think it was a Missing Links episode with Greg Braden.
Okay.
And he talks about fractals and how essentially it's a simple shape. It starts as a simple shape. And then on the edges of it, it keeps repeating and repeating and repeating, getting seemingly ever more complex. But ultimately, the base is the same and it's super simple. And they believe like if this is a simulation or what this says is it would be fractal based. And if I'm not communicating, I could find ways or practice more how to communicate the fractal concept. He does it much better. So if you're interested in learning, I would look up that episode. But it's just a metaphor of life too. Like really, the root is so simple. Like the root of most of the negative beliefs or limiting beliefs from people is that they're not worthy. They're not worthy of love. That they need to do something to create value, to be worthy, to be loved. They're not perfect as they are and loved unconditionally and infinitely valuable because they're divinity, they're a child of God. Right. So if you rearrange that belief and you embody that and you act from that place, well, you'll find that most of these other limiting beliefs are just surface beliefs that completely fall away. Right? Maybe some people won't be able to see the depth of that belief right away. They may see it as their external circumstances and other things in their life. But as they peel back the layers and assume more responsibility for all of their creation, then we can find one or two or three just major like themes that these dominoes, if you can knock that one over, if you can change your relationship to that domino, it will knock over all the other ones. And then life can transform radically and quickly. Like, the more years you're on this planet, I think we start to think it's time. There's a saying, right? Like where'd the time go? It went by so fast, right? And it's like, and at the same time, what is that saying? That you just weren't present for much of it, that you were just floating in it? Because the amount of change in life that can happen in 3 months or 6 months or 12 months, like radically, I'm radically different, completely different than I was 3 years ago. And when I left Chicago, left the company, people I worked with, I'm still the same person inside. I still have the same heart, but I'm a lot truer to myself and to what I want to do, what excites me, to who I am. And so I look completely different in the root, in the energy. I'm still the same person. They still know me, my being, but but the transformation of everything that is around me, my environment, my reality, my life, it's just not even, it's like someone wrote a fantasy book, put it around me, So what's possible, you have to believe first that it's possible. If you don't believe that you can transform or that you can't dream yourself into a different situation, because most people are focused, we create what we focus upon. Energy flows where attention goes, right? We all know that saying. And so most people are focused on what they want to change in their life, but upon being focused on that, it's great that the awareness gets that I don't like smoking. Smoking is something I want to get rid of. Great. How much time do they just spend focusing on not smoking? Like they're still focused on smoking. They haven't imagined, well, what would you do with the time without smoking? What would your life be like? They have to, that's where the imagination practice, that's where that is a skill, as a technology comes into play. If you can't dream yourself or conceive a new way of being, what would be there if you didn't do this, then you'll keep hanging on to this. You'll keep repeating that because you have no direction. It doesn't have to be the most accurate, but it has to be a direction to drive the energy. Otherwise, the energy is going to continue looping back in what you're doing. And that's what we call addiction.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, the imagination muscle is real. I mean, that's a great practice in itself, is just even to see to look into how that is for you. Are you having a hard time imagining? Do you need to work on that, or play around with that, I should say? Because it's more about playing and tapping into our childlike curiosity around that, what could be possible. And that's why I like that you bring up the book that you brought up with the ascended masters and all of these things that really, even the flat earth theory, which I kind of went through the same thing with too. And then now I'm like, that's an interesting theory. I'm going to actually stay open to that because it's kind of interesting. And not that not that one it is or it isn't. It's just maybe it's all of it, who knows? But just holding space for all these possibilities all at once. I also believe that when we're really coming from an ego standpoint, we're in more of a proving and defending mode. And so I think many of us have been trained that we need to prove that it exists before we believe in it, and rarely do we really go into, well, wait, what's possible? Could I start believing in that first, or being at least open to it? So I think that's very valuable as well.
Absolutely. For me,
Yeah.
the proving would probably, I imagine for most, would be rooted all the way back in value and
Yeah.
self-worth. Like, why do you need to prove anything to anyone? To
Yeah.
think what you think, or to believe what you believe, or to play any game? Like, it's
That's
just a
true.
game with your mind. Like,
Yes.
why does it have to be so much more serious? What's going to happen? Death? Oh, you scared of death? You think that's, are you back to this endedness thing? Are you forgetting your divinity? Are you contradicting the things you say you believe as a new age spiritual person? It's like,
Yeah.
we can laugh at this, and then, yeah, the beauty, like, I think comedians are, really tapped into a lot of this stuff. Not all, but some, or many of the great ones, of like, they see the comedy in all this. They say they believe in this, but then they're acting in all these ways. It's like, and if I ask you this question and take you down this rabbit hole, are we going to get to the same place? Like, you scared of dying because you don't believe divinity is here? Like, you're not divine and you're not eternal. Like, your body's mortal. And there was a good saying the other day, but I don't have it yet. Maybe it'll come to me. But the body's mortal, we're immortal, you know?
Yeah, I believe that too. Yeah, I know it is interesting how people, we love to explore these, like, know these concepts, I suppose, but when we're actually integrating it, there's not that piece yet for some people, and that's where we are at with some of us. We're just practicing it, or we're not practicing it and seeing how that turns out. Um, with that, I feel like as we've been going through this past couple of years or so, and with all these changes and shifts with people, like the example you gave, the pandemic totally changed your life because it really made you got to make a choice, one that you wanted to follow more so to really to listen to more of what you wanted to do, and to listen to yourself, and that's beautiful. um and I also have been hearing a lot that there's two kind of, we're separating worlds, so to speak, and so this new earth is coming. And what do you think about all of that? What is your take? Where do you see people going? Do you see more and more people starting to open up to the possibilities? And do you even see like a book like that coming into the schools for kids? I mean, I think that would be wonderful if kids could start out that way. And I almost feel like when you're a kid, you do already have that potential, unlimited potential, and openness. But then, as we get older, it kind of shuts down. So, where are you with where we're going with all this? Does anything come to you when when I ask that?
Well, for me, all the potentials of the future are possible. It's about what the collective or the majority focus their energy upon, right? And most
Yeah.
of them will remain on what the news is, what's told. And because to me, reality is only here and now. The future is an idea, and the past is some memory that may not even be accurate, right? And so the practices and everything I'm discussing is actually about realizing heaven here, heaven now. Heaven is here, heaven is now. Can you practice seeing that in your life and being that, and then your life will look like heaven? You know, there are places, people have communities, there are other types of schools where they're opening kids to these ideas from the beginning. They're not following the mainstream. If you're following the mainstream narrative, you're also conditioned to believe that everyone follows the mainstream narrative. That's what makes it the mainstream narrative, right? But that, you know, like when the whole thing began, like it's so silly, like COVID freed me. And I think it's freeing a lot of people in their minds and in their own power. Yeah. They're, do I think that we're going to live in a place where everyone's like perfectly free? And no, like that's not how karma works. That's not the point of all of this. This is, what would you learn if we were in heaven, like in the sense that like everything was equal, everything was perfect. We all just, like, there wasn't self-expression, there wasn't self-exploration or individuation, right? There's just oneness. Like we separated from the oneness to learn, to experience. So in terms of like where we're going, I would still challenge and direct the energy into focusing now, focusing that reality now, seeing your heaven here and now, seeing all the kids that are growing with conscious, you know, like how many kids are growing up with conscious parents, like versus 15 years ago?
Yeah.
So much more. Like there's community in Austin and other cities around the US, and meeting people like ourselves that share these values, and then they're raising their families together. They're raising in communities, or putting their, the realities already exist. It's just putting the attention upon it. It's just focusing upon it and allowing yourself to be in it. Because at first it's going to be different from all of your conditioned beliefs and what you're taught. And it's a slow breaking. If you watch Joseph Campbell's documentary, Finding Joe, and he talks about the golden Buddha metaphor, where it's like they encased the golden Buddha in cement to hide it. And that's basically everybody after they go through childhood, they're encased in cement, and then a trauma, a divorce, things happen that break away the cement, and then you see the gold underneath, and then the whole process just becomes about pulling the cement off so that you can shine the gold, right? And so to me, it's this process of, it's here now. It's already here now. All of this stuff that you think we're going, that's kind of an endedness thing. Like, what's going to happen when we get there? What will be different when we get there? You know, it's like exercising to get to something, to get to 10 pounds less. Like, that's great, but then what? Where are you going to go? And what if the whole point of this, when you left the body, and remembered everything, what if the whole point was just like your only job was to experience all of it? And everyone's busy finding their purpose and doing all this other shit, not experiencing their moments in the present because they're concerned with finding their purpose. Even what if the purpose was to fucking experience the moment? Like, what if that was the purpose of this thing?
Yeah.
To be an aspect of God, experiencing itself from different aspects, individuating, exploring every possibility. So what's the job of each possibility? To experience it, to take in the information, to understand it.
Yeah.
That's it. And so it's this, and how do you be present? We're not really present in our mind. So when I'm busy trying to like understand something, you know, it's like throwing a Frisbee. If I'm wasting my time, like I don't want to call it wasting time, but like, am I throwing the Frisbee? Like, I'm busy throwing the Frisbee, or am I spending my time thinking about like, okay, twist and plant the foot here, and like, you know, like maybe in between a throw or two, I just kind of think about something for just a second, like take in a detail. But if I spend all my time thinking about throwing the Frisbee, then I'm never actually going to throw the Frisbee very well. And how much of life people are doing that? They're busy thinking about life. They're trying to make sense of it. Their consciousness is very centered in their mind and not in their heart. And we want those two organs to be in coherence, to act together, right? That's when I talk about the feelings and the words matching, and practicing that in your body by breathing, exhaling, saying the word, seeing how your body responds to it, and ingraining that in there. And then isn't that what embodied means? It's in body.
Yeah.
The belief is in body. What does it mean? It's in my body. It's in my nervous system. It's an accuracy. It's love in my nervous system. If love as a kid was chaos, then to my nervous system, I'm going to create chaos in my life because that's love.
Yeah.
And why? Because I've embodied chaos as love. And at the end of the day, like we said about the fractal, of the simplicity, well, the techniques are quite simple. When I look at yoga, I continue to laugh. I'm like, son of a bitch. They've had this fucking shit in this book forever. You know, they got so many great techniques. And, you know, to me, it's also about finding the techniques that resonate for you. There's different systems with different techniques, all doing kind of the same thing. I would say actually the same thing if you can see the overlap in there. I would say that they're actually teaching the same thing, just slightly different techniques. Like let's say like tantric sex and sublimating the energy, moving the energy to higher levels of consciousness, to the heart, to the throat, to the third eye, into union. Whereas the Mantak Chia Taoist system is teaching the same thing, but he's teaching more of a circulation. He's teaching something slightly different, but learning to see all of the wisdoms there, the knowledge that we need, the techniques are there. The bummer about it for most people is that it requires effort and internalization. It requires going inside and practicing, and effort requires effort. You know, you can't watch something like a documentary, a book. They're there for inspiration. They're there to bring the spirit up within you. But then you have to allow it to continue. Like you have to allow the spirit to express through you.
Yeah.
And that's where the doing comes from.
Exactly. Yeah. I call it inspired action. Yeah. That's beautiful. Thank you, Nico. This has been amazing. I mean, I wouldn't expect anything other than just amazing with you. So thank you so much. And I'm so grateful that you and Liam got connected and you helped him so much as well. And you know, it's your friendship with him has been amazing too. And so yeah, thank you so much for coming on. And please share with my audience any offerings you want to share that you have coming up or anything you'd like to share about what you're doing right now.
Yeah, let's see. As far as me individually, there are some no planned experiences yet. Can always coordinate and plan an experience as I'm passing through a city, even with just a small group of people for a day. So if anyone's interested in that, they can reach out. Maybe they have a handful of people in their area and I can travel there and facilitate the experience.
We didn't even talk about the family constellations, but you offer that as well. And you and I talked about doing something here at some point, but that would be another thing that, you know, that's an amazing experience in itself. But yeah, I just wanted to add that in there. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. That's family constellations, super powerful work. So facilitating family constellations wherever my partner and I are passing through. I'm not as comfortable doing it online yet. I know it can be done online, but I prefer in person. Can cultivate a couple experiences in person with small groups, cacao ceremonies. You know, I'd say it's guided visualization, but it's an experience, and I use specific tools, and doing much of it or most can do all of it without psychedelics. I do one-on-one work, just coaching, mentor, developing vision, providing support and integrating their experiences and taking in some of these bigger shifts in life, and doing my best to just reflect to them through my experience. And if I resonate with them, then that's maybe a match for a teacher, but we would have a conversation first to see if it is a match and if there are ways I could support and guide and help you through your transition. You know, in a way, I work with death, right? In the sense of the dark, like death is just transformation, right? And we want to be willing to look into the dark and to illuminate it, to bring it to the surface, and then to make decisions around it, right? Yeah. So first it's unconscious. Someone can trigger something or bring it up to the subconscious, and we can start to create awareness around it. We start to become more conscious of it. It's kind of like a sliding scale in my idea. And then the more I'm aware of it, the more I can make choices understanding that. And that's when something goes from unconscious to subconscious to conscious, right? So guiding them in that process, that's finding where their blockages are in life. Because I'm not there to fix their life or do anything. In a way, I see a shaman as not a healer, that the natural flow of love and life heals you. The body heals itself. The only thing that happens is we get stuff stuck. Our prana, our chi, it's not flowing properly. We get blockages on purpose, right? All by design, all perfect. But a shaman is someone that removes the blockages or supports you in removing them, right? And so in that way, that's what I do. Or you can see it as a doula or a Sherpa or whatever word works for people. So we have one-on-one stuff. We have small group experiences, also with integration if they'd like, after family constellations. My partner and I will be putting together some more basics upon tantric sex and relationship, and how to utilize all that and to integrate that into your spiritual life and into your partnership, and bringing more there. There's a lot more to access. I think the intimate partner is the greatest mirror, the closest mirror that you're going to get. And they're going to bring up the shit the quickest, the deepest. And then my partner has some other offerings they can see through our link tree on my Instagram or hers, or the Totality Tantric Academy Instagram. So the academy, and teaching the tantra is just in its beginning stages, as I'm going through my experiences the last few years and learning the language to communicate. But if any of those things interest them, we also will be putting together, it's looking like, we were thinking beginning of December, but after discussing with a handful of potential people that want to attend, it's a difficult time to travel to Mexico. But in the southern coast of Oaxaca, where we stay, we will be putting on a couples retreat for Tantra for 4 days. And then if they so choose, there's 3 extra days possible, where on the 5th day, we'd sit in a private overnight peyote ceremony with someone that I work with very closely. And I'd be working, myself and the shaman would be working with everyone through the ceremony that night. And then we'd have 2 days of integration and connection, relaxing by a pool in the ocean.
That sounds nice.
So kind of integrating or combining, a tantric relationship retreat with a little healing ceremony at the end, and then just integration, vacation, relaxation.
That sounds wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Nico. And
thank you.
Yeah. There's one other thing I was going to say, but now it just slipped my mind. Well, yeah, thank you. And I'll see you in Sedona. I'll see you in Sedona.
Yes.
And I'm looking forward to that too. But yeah, thank you so much for coming on. And until next time, friend.
Appreciate you. Love you. Thank you.
Love you too.
It was exciting. Take care.
Okay.